FBI says 15 people have now been arrested, including members of a violent Tacoma street.
It looked like just another damp Seattle morning. Quiet streets, low mist, nothing to see. Then unmarked SUVs lined the curb outside a plain apartment block in the International District, and the air changed. Agents in dark jackets moved like clockwork, carrying sealed boxes that said everything without a word. To anyone passing by, it could have been a routine bust. But people close to the case say this wasn't routine at all. It was the pressure point of a network that had been quietly flooding the city with fentanyl. But here's why that morning mattered. Investigators believed they were standing inside the hub of a machine that had turned grief into profit, one blue pill at a time. And the question wasn't if the machine would break. It was how hard they could hit it without missing what was still hidden. The trail that led them there started months earlier, and it didn't look random at all. Counterfeit blues. Small, familiar, and deadly when you least expect it. Paramedics say the calls come from everywhere, under freeway ramps, in quiet cul-de-sacs, in bathrooms where a friend thought the pill was harmless until it wasn't. Families have been blindsided. Nurses will tell you every night brings a new emergency, and more than a few end with someone who OD'd before help arrived. But the pattern wasn't chaos, it was a signature. Same pill look, same corridors, same clusters of stash houses. That consistency told investigators they weren't chasing street-level randomness. They were tracing a supply line with real structure behind it. And once they saw the structure, they knew where to start pulling. Because if you can map the veins, you can find the heart. The next step was to build that map, piece by piece. They didn't guess. They tested. Undercover buys linked sellers who didn't even know they were connected. The routes pointed south along I-5, moving under the cover of legitimate freight. Suburban rentals weren't just rentals. Some were quietly retrofitted with concealed panels. Drugs in, cash out, no fingerprints left behind. Cash runners ferried bulk currency, and reports claim those funds traced back to cross-border suppliers who treat city lines like suggestions. But listen to this. The first real break came when the buys and the routes lined up with stash houses in South King County, giving agents enough to go beyond surveillance. With warrants, they went loud in March. And the numbers that landed on the table told them they'd only opened the first door. That's when the operation went from patient to decisive. The March raids landed like a hammer. Agents seized 19 kilograms of fentanyl powder, roughly 250,000 fentanyl-laced pills, nearly 100 pounds of meth, and about 111 kilograms of cocaine, more than $3 million on the street, gone in a day. Health officials warned that the fentanyl alone could have meant thousands of funerals if it hit the wrong hands. But it didn't feel finished. Networks like this don't vanish when one house gets cleared. They adapt, split, and keep moving. It gets bigger when you realize how many routes were still active just outside that first circle. So investigators widened the map, pushed surveillance deeper, and waited for the moment when all the pieces would sync. That moment came at dawn on May 29th. 16 locations. One morning. Federal Way, Kent, Tukwila, Everett, Issaquah, Seattle, plus linked sites in Oregon and California. Teams from HSI, DEA, FBI, Seattle Police, the King County Sheriff's Office, and the Washington National Guard Counterdrug Task Force moved at once. By sunset, they'd taken more than 57,000 fentanyl-laced pills, 18 kilograms of meth, over 7 kilograms of cocaine, 17 illegal firearms, and about $353,000 in cash, some of it hidden inside vehicles and furniture. Indictments followed, alleging conspiracy to distribute fentanyl, meth, cocaine, and heroin, plus firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking. Because of the quantities, most face 5 to 10-year mandatory minimums, with harsher penalties alleged for ringleaders and for those armed during the offenses. But listen to this. The case wasn't just about bricks and bills. Financial units started following the cash to build laundering cases, and prosecutors pushed for detention given flight risk and public safety concerns. The raids shook the tree, but the impact was measured in something you can't stack on a table. What changed on the ground came next. Numbers don't meet you at the ER door. People do. A downtown shelter nurse said every pill taken off the street is one fewer call at 3 a.m., and in her world, that's not abstract. A father outside the courthouse held a photo of his 19-year-old daughter. One counterfeit pill was all it took. On the sidewalks, residents noticed fewer open-air deals and a different kind of quiet, less wary, more hopeful. But that's not all. Community advocates warned that enforcement alone can slow the damage, not end it. They pushed for more treatment beds, stronger outreach, and real paths to recovery, because supply isn't the only problem when demand is fueled by pain. The reason this matters is simple. You can fracture a network and still lose people if there's nowhere for them to go next. And this wasn't just a Seattle story. Zoom out and the picture sharpens. Just weeks before the May 29th raids, the DOJ and DA announced a nationwide sweep that seized more than 400 kilograms of fentanyl, one of the biggest synthetic opioid crackdowns in recent memory. Investigators say the Seattle area cells were tied to cross-border suppliers, and financial teams are tracking that $353,000 to build out laundering cases. Prosecutors have asked courts to keep top defendants detained until trials expected in early 2026. Reports claim precursor chemicals often move internationally before finished product heads north, a pattern officials have warned about for years. But here's the part people whisper about when the microphones are off. Every time a big network is cut down, another crew tries to fill the gap. Some speculate the next wave arrives in smaller increments, stashed in more places, harder to catch. It's unverified, but communities feel the risk. Which raises the question no seizure can fully answer. Did this fracture the network? Or force it to evolve? Rumors suggest some traffickers pivot to microshipments, spreading risk across dozens of smaller drops. Others claim local pill pressing spikes for a bit after major raids as street groups look to stretch remaining supply. None of that's confirmed, and officials are careful not to tip tactics. But listen to this. Emergency responders reported a brief dip in fentanyl-related OD calls after May 29th, and community leaders want forfeited cartel funds steered toward treatment, prevention, education, and mental health. That's where the long game lives. Because while agents can pull thousands of lethal doses off the street in a day, recovery takes months, sometimes years, and relapse doesn't care about press conferences. If there's a surprise here, it's that the most powerful part of the crackdown isn't just what was seized, it's what the city decides to build with the breathing room it bought. The empire that once felt untouchable is cracked. The shadows are thinner, but the next moves, treatment, outreach, and relentless pressure on supply, decide whether Seattle steps out of the fog or watches it roll back in.